we have to understand what is the collective state of consciousness on the earth currently. And since we're in our majority, like most of the people are victimized, and they carry a lot of karmic impact from their parents, from generations to generation. There's a lot of occult influence. There is a lot of influence that most of the people aren't aware of. And definitely we pass on this information through interaction with our children, not only genetically passing information, but also through their upbringing. So definitely it's a danger. But we have already degraded to this degree that to stop it is impossible. So what we could do, we could slowly, step by step, start awakening to the ultimate reality on an individual level, where an ultimate reality is our natural being. So we would awake to our natural being and observe things through that natural being, and take our children for being the best teachers. So instead of the normal victimization programs like pressing children, pressurizing, pushing them around, forcing them to do things, we would approach them as equal on one hand, and we would approach them as small teachers. They're in a small body, but they are our teachers because they trigger our victimized responses, our deeply rooted emotional thought distortions, our traumas of the past. And I don't mean just the past, this life, but many lives before. So, but we can't prove that we had many lives. We can just say that whatever is there, we're having now, it has come to existence somehow. So, and we're to deal with it. It doesn't matter when it came, how it came, it is there. And we are reacting. We react to our children the same way our parents reacted to us when we were children. So it's a chain reaction. Now, if you're aware of that, you'll make an effort to realize that and inhale, exhale, observe, control, discharge negative emotions elsewhere, maybe by walking, maybe by doing household chores, trying to understand that this is my future. My future is not somewhere else. This child is a carrier of my genetic information, and I am to pass knowledge. And also, why would we procreate? People procreate because the purpose of procreation means we want to pass our knowledge further, our evolutionary intelligence or state of consciousness further, so that the further evolves. But we are not yet, or we are not quite yet on an evolutionary path yet. We are kind of trying to, we degraded a lot, and we're just trying to realize that now. So even by having realized that, and at least somehow consciously trying to change patterns and programs and attitude to our children and to other people in general, by having admitted to self these victimization programs, anger patterns, blaming others, not taking responsibility for one's own life and choices, and blaming others or blaming fate or luck or God or whoever else, but not seeing own creation of what is happening, or own role in creation of what is happening in one's own life. So we have chance to somehow at least create a certain radar in our consciousness to notice whenever we feel angry, whenever we feel like again projecting negativity, again complaining, again blaming others, again putting others in a superior or inferior position, we would notice it. And we would try to either abstain from reacting, or we would try to react in a more mild way with some more respect, some more effort, some more tolerance. So it requires conscious approach, conscious understanding, not just some kind of a idea or religious fanatic attitude. It requires conscious understanding, yet not blaming self, not punishing self. So victimization also creates the response in us to punish self. So it's together with the self-punishment program. And that's why we sometimes tend to escape, because it's a result of the fact that we do realize that somehow we do something not good to others. And so we realize that, or we feel guilt or shame, and we realize that now we don't deserve to be happy. We don't deserve to be appreciated by our children. And eventually that becomes the case. So we are not only to admit our faults to ourselves, but we also to accept that, yes, so far it is there. So far that person or I am, we're sick, we are emotionally imbalanced, we are victimized. So, but we want to transcend from it. We want to evolve. So the guilt has to be minimal. There has to be realization. Even if you've done something wrong, okay, you've learned. For the reality, it's neutral. Whatever you do is your own story, your own emotion about whatever you do. Reality always is neutral. But if you feel, as a response to your actions and reactions, guilt, you have to contemplate on it. You have to understand why. And you have to accept that so far on this evolutionary stage, we are carrying the genetic heritage from our parents, from their parents, and so on. So it's not possible to change it over a day. And that's why we have to accept it as our evolutionary path, to refine through our families, through interacting with others, and changing the pattern of communication, interpretation of the actions of others, reacting, instead consciously observing and seeing, even if there is a reaction, not to allow reaction to be your boss, not to allow reaction to pull you out of your natural being. Or even if you react, then inhale, exhale, say sorry, register somewhere in your consciousness, and don't do it again. If it again happens, deal with it, but don't blame yourself. Be on the path of learning, not self-judgment, not self-punishment. And realize that all these patterns, they've come from parents. Maybe parents were also judging themselves, and their grandparents and so on. They were all judging. They were all feeling guilty that they couldn't work with their emotions. Now we came to the point that our evolutionary stage allowed us to realize that these patterns no longer work. They no longer promote our evolution. So we are to make an effort to come out of the slumber, to come out of this victimization, and restore our natural sense of identity and self-being through the equanimous natural being. But we are to awake to this understanding and slowly refine self. And that's why our spirituality right now is not that much about the alchemy of self, but more about, first of all, dealing with the deeply rooted cancer of our self-identity, which is victimization. So once we've dealt with it, so much energy is released. No more drainage of energy, no more scatteredness of mind. Then we can work on building our identity on subtler levels and become more aware of our light body and so on. But right now we have to deal with the mundane. We have to refine the mundane. And we are to pass this refinement to further generations so that they refine themselves too. And first of all comes this self-work, but second of all comes the system, the educational system, which has to give very different knowledge and understanding of who we are to the small children. So true education starts with the early education, and early education modalities have to be changed too, where children are taught to go more to the nature, to learn from the nature, to learn from observation rather than constant bombarding or being constantly bombarded by information and other people's conclusions of what reality is and what ought to be. And so by gradually changing the early education modalities, by making people understand that family is the cell of our society, and what is the feminine and masculine, and how these are to be interacted in a proper way, or how these to be put in union. And the more we will go away from sexual perversion, drug, alcohol abuse, and other escapist plans, including New Age spirituality, religious fanatism, dogmatism, and superiority.